Okay, class, today we're going to learn about 8.3, so cosine law, but we're going to learn about solving for the angle, as the other day we learned about solving for the side length. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take an equation, we're going to rearrange it. So I'm going to take the top equation, a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a. And what we're going to do is we're going to rearrange to solve for cos A, essentially. Okay, so I'm going to move the b squared and the c squared to the other side of the equation. So they become negative as they move to the other side of the equation. I'd be left with negative 2bc cos A. And as you've been doing the operation, we know that negative 2bc cos A is a fact of multiplication. So we're going to divide out negative 2bc to the other side of the equation. So that would cross out. Also, we want to get rid of that negative sign on the front. So what we can do is we can divide by the negative. So it would actually become negative a squared plus b squared plus c squared divided by 2bc equals cos A. Now, some people might leave the equation like that, but I would prefer to actually rearrange it so it looks a little bit nicer. So on the top row, if you want to rearrange this section, we could. Okay, and that will look like, I'm going to write that out for us, so I'm just going to erase it. So writing it out for us, it looks as b squared plus c squared minus a squared. Okay? And that is the equation that we're going to be using to solve for the other equations. Okay? It also comes in 3 different forms as well, and we'll get used to solving for those 3 forms as we did the other day. So let's look at solving for an angle. Okay? So if we wanted to solve for angle F, so writing the equation, I would go cos F is equal to, now I could label my other sides E, F, D, is equal to the other 2 sides, so E squared plus D squared, subtract the side of the angle, all over 2ED. Now what I could do is I could sub in those values. So we know cos F is equal to 5 squared plus 8 squared minus 6 squared divided by 2 times 5 times 8. So when you get to this part, what I want you to do is I want you to solve for the top and the bottom of the equation here. Okay, so cos F. So solving for the top section first, okay, we get the value of 53. Solving for the bottom, 2 times 5 times 8 gives you a value of 80. And leave it in that fraction form for when you go to solve, because now we're going to solve for angle F by moving over cos. And when we move over cos, it becomes cos inverse times 53 over 80. Then our angle F, okay, is equal to 49 degrees. Okay, so we found out that angle F is equal to 49 degrees. I'd like you guys to pause the video right now and take a second to try out the second equation by yourself here. And this time, again, you're just going to be solving for angle Q. I would first start by labeling your sides and then create the equation. So if we're to create the equation, again, we're trying to solve for angle Q. Therefore, we're going to use the opposite sides of that. So r squared plus p squared, and subtract the side that we have of angle Q, all divided by 2RP. Again, it's a really good skill to be able to create these equations. So now that you have these values, what you're going to do is you're going to sub in the values that you've made the equation with. So we get 11.3 squared plus 5.4 squared minus 9.8 squared, all over 2 times 11.3 times 5.4. And as I mentioned before, I want you to solve the top and the bottom independently before we actually do any work. So if we solve the top, 60.81, and I would leave all the decimal places. Don't round them, don't keep them all. Solving the bottom, 122.04. And keep those values, and now again, you're going to bring cos to the other side. So cos inverse times 60.81 divided by 122.04. And when we do that, we find out that it's about 60 degrees is angle Q. Okay, so we solved for that angle. We're going to do one more question, which is a little bit more of a word problem. So find the interior angles of an isosceles. So what they're saying by the isosceles triangles is that there's two angles the same, okay? So we would know that these two angles would be the same and these two angles would be the same. But the nice part is, because we're given so much information, we could actually solve for one of these angles. So I'm going to choose to solve for this angle here, okay? And again, if you want to write out the equation, you can. I might write this one out a little bit differently because of the information I'm given. So I would start with cos of x, what I'm trying to find. Okay, 11.3 and 8.9 are my opposite sides. And then 11.7 is the side that is in relation to cos x. All divided by 2 times 11.3 and 8.9. So I go ahead and I solve the top and the bottom, and I get 70.01 on the top and 201.14 on the bottom. And again, I'm going to move cos to the other side. And when I move cos to the other side, it becomes cos inverse 1, and that eliminates the cos here. And thus we find that angle x equals 70 degrees. Okay? But we're not quite done because they're asking us to find all the interior angles of the triangle. So we know that this angle equals 70 degrees. We know that this angle equals 70 degrees because they're equivalent. But now we have to find out what the other two angles equal. So what we could do is we could do 360 degrees, because that's what a quadrilateral adds up in its interior angles. Subtract 70 degrees, subtract the other 70 degrees, and you're going to be left with 220. But now those are the angle measurements that are left, but it's equivalent, thus we can divide by the two angles, and we find out that the other two angles both equal 110 degrees. So we now found out that this equals 110 and this equals 110 degrees. So guys, that's the end of today's lesson. I think you'll find it fairly easy because you guys did the cosine lesson the other day. Homework for tonight, okay, is page 91, numbers 1 to 4, alternate, okay? And just a reminder, we have a test Wednesday, okay? And we're going to be doing review on Monday and Tuesday, okay? And homework check on Monday as well. Have a great day, guys.